Hi, I'm Andreas Fouras, and I'm incredibly happy to be presenting 4DMedical to you today. Here are the standard investor disclaimers. I'd like to start the story with you today, talking about the size and detail of the market opportunity in respiratory diagnostics. While there's too much here to talk to you about in detail, the key features that we have are an incredibly large global market opportunity of over $31 billion per annum globally, and with a significant concentration of $13.7 billion of that in the United States. We also have significant concentration of the market into 4 technology areas. You can see here, X-ray, pulmonary function test, CT, and nuclear medicine. Between them have 99% market share. Additionally, it's really worth noting that there's a significant new opportunity here for us with Veterans Health in the United States. The VA, or Veterans Health Administration, is already a $250 billion plus per year healthcare provider in the United States. In addition to that, the US PACT Act has appropriated US $280 billion over 10 years of additional funding specifically for veterans who have been affected by exposure to toxic burn pits. And as you can imagine, there's the greatest portion of that directs us to lung conditions, and 4DMedical is perfectly placed to assist in this area. As we mentioned, just 4 technologies cover 99% of respiratory diagnostics conducted today. I'm going to quickly take you through each one of these. Spirometry, invented in 1846, is a technology that allows us to understand how the lungs are functioning. It's a functional technology. However, as quite an aged technology, it only gives us one-dimensional information. We blow into a tube and it measures how much air comes from all of our lungs collectively. So that means if some of our lungs are functioning above average and some below, we don't get to see that detail. And so it often hides diseases as they're progressing, which is the exact opposite of what we're looking in a diagnostic tool. X-rays, invented in 1895, are not functional. In fact, they provide just an image of how the lung looks. And as a still 2-dimensional image, firstly, the patient has to take a deep breath in and then hold still. And secondly, the technology layers all of that detail of what is present in the lung into one single flat 2-dimensional image. This image covers over small defects and small problems in the lungs, and once again makes them very difficult to find. CT is quickly becoming the gold standard. And so while it only has 11.8% of market procedures, has a much larger than that share financially of the current market. Technology is sensitive, but it's expensive and it's high in radiation dose. In fact, has about 70 times the radiation of a chest X-ray to conduct one CT. The upside is that it doesn't miss features. By being a 3-dimensional scan, it doesn't layer on top all of those structural effects at the same time. However, it is structural. It shows us a picture of how the lung looks and doesn't give us a picture of how the lung works. And so once again, can miss many things. I want to quickly introduce nuclear medicine, in particular, something called a VQ scan. This scan provides what seems like the best combination in terms of is quite functional, is multidimensional, but unfortunately has significant downsides in that it's incredibly expensive, also takes a long time to conduct. And while it is imaging, you might be able to see here on these images, the images are typically very grainy and quite difficult for the doctor to interpret. On the other hand, I'm very pleased to introduce to you here XV technology. XV technology is a 4-dimensional scan that measures lung function everywhere across the 3-dimensional structure of the lung, but across the 4th dimension of phases of the breath. So we get 10,000 measurements at 14 phases of the breath, each of which show where the air flows in the lungs and where it doesn't. It's incredibly rich information that allows doctors to understand what's happening in their patient's lungs with clarity that's just not possible using any other technology. So I'm very pleased to introduce you to XV technology. XV offers a 4-dimensional scan that measures lung function across the 3 dimensions of the lung, plus the 4th dimension of every phase of the breath. In fact, XV measures airflow at 10,000 points within the lung times 14 phases of the breath. For an incredibly rich amount of data that physicians can use to diagnose and understand properly for the first time what's happening within their patient's lungs. What's also very exciting about XV technology is it's layered directly on top of existing X-ray equipment that's already in every hospital across the United States, Australia, and indeed almost every hospital around the world. This means that we can utilize the capabilities of X-rays, particularly utilize the high availability and the low cost and low radiation of X-rays to do our imaging. So what that provides us in combination is, as a simple elevator pitch for XV technology, that this technology has the advantages of the top three modalities being spirometry, X-ray, and CT, without any of their disadvantages, into a single platform that has a significant opportunity to take all of their market share. That is that XV technology provides functional insight of spirometry, but at a regional level. It utilizes existing X-ray equipment, so it has similar dose and cost, yet it provides a rich, detailed, three-dimensional scan, but plus with the fourth dimension. And while CT is only structural, this XV shows us function. With XV being such a powerful diagnostic capability, the final thing is to demonstrate the significant clinical utility. And as we've been rolling out XV across America and the United States, we have case after case of the clinical utility of this technology, which is something that we haven't had access to, as we began. This is, in fact, the evidence of clinical utility is the biggest change that 4DMedical has had over the past year, and really places us in a position to continue to accelerate our rollout across Australia and the United States. Let me just show you two key examples of that. Here, the first one is long COVID. In this particular case, we have a 52-year-old female who had acute COVID or severe COVID, and the CT show these white areas here then effectively indicate pneumonia in those lungs. However, in this case, as the COVID cleared up, this patient did not feel better following the progression of this disease. And she didn't understand why she didn't feel better, and neither did her doctor. She got another CT scan, and the CT scan looks clear. But in order to understand what's happening, thankfully, the patient obtained an XV scan. And the XV scan showed that there were, in fact, the areas that had previously been occupied by pneumonia were not breathing as well, were not ventilating as well as the areas that hadn't. This allowed the doctor to make a decision to put her on therapy, on a drug treatment, and that drug treatment was incredibly effective. In fact, it was so effective that she wanted to, after a few months, stop that treatment. However, once again, follow-up scan from XV technology allowed the doctor to see that she wasn't quite fully completed in her treatment journey. So just a really very powerful example of how, on a day-to-day basis, XV technology allows doctor and patients to make the right decisions. And at 4DMedical, we firmly believe that better information leads to better decisions, and better decisions to better patient outcomes. Another really exciting example is from a clinical trial, looking at patients who had been exposed to burn pits, as we discussed before. And in this clinical trial, we have shown that while these patients, in general, have normal tests across all of the other modalities, so they have normal pulmonary function tests, normal X-rays, normal CTs. And so apart from the very invasive extrathoracic surgical biopsy, our test, XV technology, becomes the only test now that has been confirmed to be able to accurately diagnose this burn pit lung disease. This puts us in an incredibly strong position to work with the VA and to help screen the 3.5 million veterans who have been exposed to those burn pits. I want to briefly talk to you about commercialization. So we're primarily focused in two markets. So I'm going to just talk to you now about our progress in Australia and in the United States. Incredibly excited that we've just recently signed a 3-year contract with IMED, Australia's largest radiology provider, with a 250 site network across the country. We successfully rolled out XV across 9 sites spanning the entire country. Also, we've now made a modified version of XV technology that is compatible, instead of using X-ray equipment, is also compatible with CT scanners. This allows access to the incredibly large number of CT scanners across the IMED network, and really will help us accelerate our rollout and be better partners with them. Also worth mentioning that last year we won funding, $28.9 million of funding from the Medical Research Future Fund, with $15 million yet to be received. And this has resulted in our deploying our first installation at Prince of Wales Hospital. And here you can see that launch, that opening ceremony. In the United States, which is, of course, a much larger opportunity, Australia represents about 2% of the global opportunity, and the United States about 45%. And in particular, the key asset we have there is $280 billion worth of spending that's been approved by the US government, specifically on veterans who have been exposed to burn pits, in combination with our recent clinical trial results showing that we have the best and most accurate tool to diagnose that disease. We also have exposure to outside of the VA and the Department of Defense. Providence is a hospital is a hospital network of 52 hospitals and 1,085 clinics across the United States. We've been piloting the technology at St. Joseph's Hospital in Orange County with great success. And the technology is being used there to screen multiple conditions, and the feedback from the doctors is very promising. In summary, we have a clinically validated technology that provides rich diagnostics, safer, lower cost, and better value to doctors and patients. We have a fantastic, very large global market, attractive growth opportunities, particularly in that core US market. We have top-tier relationships, whether it's our clinical trial partners or our commercial partners such as IMED. We have incredibly scalable software as a service business model with profit margins that can exceed 90%, a strong pipeline of new products, and a highly experienced board of directors and senior management to make it all happen. Thank you very much.